Welcome. This is Your Mac Life for Wednesday, the 10th day of September 2014, show number 1024. I am your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining us, whether you're listening to us live right now at this very moment in time or tuned into our archive, which most of you are. So thanks very much for being an archive listener. On tonight's show, as always, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com about, well, what else? Apple. Nothing else happened for the previous 36 hours and probably for the next at least week that doesn't relate to Apple. This is the kind of mind share Apple has. I'm watching Monday Night Football, sitting on the couch, mindlessly just, Monday Night Football, zoned out. And the announcers, just off the cuff, not in an advertisement or not associated with anything, mentioned the Apple event yesterday. So this is Monday, and they say, and Apple's coming out with new stuff tomorrow. It's like, that's the kind of mindshare Samsung and Microsoft and Motorola would kill for. Just average people talking about these things, knowing about these things, excited about these things. It was remarkable to see how much play this got from people. And then it tripled as soon as Apple started announcing things. I was saying in the IRC chat room before the show began that it's been exhausting because now, in the last 36 hours, not only have I had to read the usual tech crap with everyone giving their opinion about things that they haven't seen, touched, used, or know about, but now I've got to read fashionista blogs. I got to read watch blogs. I got to read fashion nerds talking about stuff they don't know what they're about, and watch nerds talking. Oh God! It's just been this collective bleh, as everybody barfed up their opinion about things they don't know anything about. 99.9% of the people who've written or spoken about this have never seen in person any of these devices. Even the folks who use them in the demo, the watch in the demo, only got to use a loop of it. They didn't actually get to do what you do with it, which is wear a watch, walk around with a watch, see how the watch feels on your arm over a long period of time. So all the 99% of the stuff that we've been seeing is from people who don't have a frickin' clue. So annoying. And, I've got an opinion too, but I'm not being definitive. The Apple Watch sucks. Really? Have you used it? Have you seen it? Have you touched it? Have you felt it? Have you played with it? No, you haven't. Shut up. So let's talk to Jim Dalrymple, who has seen the iPhone. I think he won't answer me, but I'm pretty sure Jim's got an iPhone 6 in his pocket right now as we speak. I'd be willing to bet that's what I'm calling him on in a few minutes. And it came late, so I don't think I got it in the show notes, but we'll definitely talk about it. Later on, we'll talk in our starting point photography segment about how the iPhone isn't for photographers, which is just crap and stupid, and we'll get to that. But sad news today, Macworld magazine, the print version, is no longer. It wasn't even announced. It was just the weasels at IDG haven't even bothered to make an announcement, a statement on their website or on macworld.com or anything else like that, telling people what the hell's going to happen. If you've got a subscription to the paper edition of Macworld magazine, what's going to happen? You have no idea. It's been, so it's been like 8 hours. And IDG hasn't said a word to those customers about where their money's going. That's just sleazy. A lot of folks lost their job today. A lot of good writers, a lot of good columnists, a lot of good people over at Macworld lost their jobs or quit, as Jason Snell did. He reported on snellworld.com that he had actually quit as the executive vice president or executive director of Macworld magazine. Now, the macworld.com will continue. And that's what a lot of folks have been saying. I'm not worried about it. I don't read the magazine, so I just go to macworld.com. The problem is macworld.com is written by the same guys who write the magazine. The Dan Morans and the Dan Frakes and Jason Snells. And if those folks aren't there, who do you think's going to be writing for the website? Well, as Macworld said, Macworld.com said, oh, we're just going to use freelancers. Well, no, I don't want to read freelancers. I read I read freelancers all the freaking time. And the vast majority of them, I simply don't trust. I got a Tanya Angst from Tidbits wrote, for me, a lot of Macworld was the people, because I felt that by knowing the person, I could better judge the reliability of the info. That's one of the reasons why I loved Macworld. I knew those guys. I'd had beers with those guys. I'd sat and talked with those guys at various Macworld expos around the world. I've been in the Macworld offices. I've been in James Galbraith's Macworld lab. I've seen the work that he puts into in his reviews and how obsessive the guy was about getting his reviews right and correct and well written. And behind the scenes folks, the editors who crafted the words of Dan and Chris and Jason and innumerable others. And I worked for Macworld as a freelancer, granted, many years ago, writing reviews for them and doing videos for them. I mean, they're doing podcasting because I told them how to do podcasting. They're doing live broadcasts out of the Moscone Center because I showed them how to do live broadcasting out of the Moscone Center. So I trusted those guys more so than almost any other website except for The Loop. So for Macworld to say, oh, we'll get by with freelancers means you're no better and no worse than Cult of Mac. Sorry, I take that back. Hopefully you'll be better than Cult of Mac. But a lot of us saw this coming. This is not a surprise to a lot of people. This was something that we predicted right here on the show many years ago. Knowing those people, I know some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. And the management at IDG just don't have a frickin' clue of what they're doing. I mean, the Macintosh, Apple, is the biggest technology company in the world. How could you not get an audience for that? Apple is selling millions and millions of Macs every single quarter. They're selling tens of millions of iPhones and iPads every 3 months. How could you not capture that market, you numbnuts? How could you run this magazine into the ground? How could you piss people off with auto-playing videos on your website, which everybody hates? Everybody hates those. There's not a single person I know that likes going to any website, Macworld.com or any other, and having music and audio and video playing without you clicking on a goddamn thing. Everyone hated those things, and we all made it known. Hell, Chris Breen regularly posted ways of how to turn off auto-playing video on his own website. Everyone editorial of Macworld magazine and .com hated autoplay, but the marketing folks didn't. The ad sellers didn't. And once that started happening, that those kind of things were being taken out of the hands of editorial, you knew this day was going to come. Now, some folks are asking, what's going to happen with Macworld Expo? Well, keep in mind that Macworld Expo and Macworld Magazine share a name, and that was it. Sorry, they share a name and an owner. IDG owns both Macworld.com, Macworld, the name, so they license it to other magazines in the UK and Japan, for example. And they own Macworld Expo. But they were run separately. The problems of Macworld Expo are completely separate, but similar in the sense that the same company is driving that into the ground too. Again, Apple is huge. The Mac market is huge and getting huger by the minute, by the quarter. How could you not be able to serve that market? It's just stupid. Mosquito, one wonders if any of the Macworld alumni might not partner up and do it right themselves in some way. The problem is that takes money. You know, if somebody had deep pockets, I said this on Twitter, if somebody had deep pockets, you could easily scoop up the people who were fired today and create a damn good website. A very, very good website. Now, will the people involved want to do that? I don't know. Brian Monroe says, how about Business Insider? Mosquito says, they won't get by. They'll run more sponsored content and shorter non-reviews. Absolutely. That's the other thing, too, is the sponsored content thing. You knew that was the beginning of the end. When they had to be told that you notify your customers, your readers of sponsored content at the top of the page, not at the bottom, hidden. Monty, as a subscriber to the print edition of Macworld, I'm offended. Not that IDG cares, I'm offended. If they didn't have the professionalism to tell those of us whose money they already have, tell us before they did this. There's been no... Now, normally what happens is when a magazine shutters, and I've had this happen with my motorcycle magazines, they say, hey, well, we're going to move your subscription over to another magazine in our family of motorcycle magazines. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For example, one magazine went under, and they gave me a subscription of something like Harley World. Well, I don't care. I don't want Harley World. They're not giving you your money back, I'll tell you that. They'll work out some deal with some other magazine and say, hey, for pennies on the dollar, please start sending your magazine to these people. But you ain't getting your money back. But it's a shame. Macworld was the 800-pound gorilla of Mac Media. Everyone wanted to work for them. I don't know about the last 5-10 years, but back in the day when I was writing reviews for them, you got $1,000 for a review. That's more than any other website ever paid in the Mac space. Mac Observer pays $100 for a column of the same length. I did the cruise. I wrote, I think, 4 or 5 stories for Macworld magazine or Macworld.com on the Mediterranean cruise I went on. And I want to say those were $500 a piece. I did a video for them of the line at the opening of the Fifth Avenue store. Sorry, no, of the iPhone launch at the Fifth Avenue store. I think I got $1,000 for that. So it was good money. You wanted to work for Macworld. And they were the most prestigious out there, too. I mean, nothing is going to take their place when it comes to ethics and, I don't know if prestige is the right word, but certainly they were the New York Times of Mac journalism. They were the best out there. That's no longer the case. Not just today, but it hasn't been the case for a while. That's a shame. It's a shame to see a good name be dragged through the mud like this. And it's a shame to see all those people get fired. Dave D. So Paul Kent's head is in the news too? I don't know. Paul Kent hasn't talked to me in years because I pissed him off by criticizing his baby. So I have no idea how he feels about this. But he's management. He's the VP at IDG. So it's unlikely that... No, sorry, it's not unlikely. But certainly if Macworld Expo was going to be shuttered, he'd probably be looking for a different gig. Later in the show, we're going to be talking about the iPhone is not for photographers, which is bullshit because it is. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about, well, all the Apple news that we all were just thrilled to hear in the last few hours. This is your Mac Life. I heard you. I saw you on Twitter that you said you actually talked to Tim Cook. That must have been a big thrill for him. I've been working on that line all night long, man. We have this great setup, and Jim's not answering his phone. God damn it! This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Just going through the Macworld stuff in the IRC chat room. Dave D. I bought the very first Macworld magazine in 1984, long before I bought my first Mac. It had a long run. Kent will land on his feet. He's a cheerleader for Mosquito. Mosquito says, hated computers till I saw what was being written about the Mac. Researched it through Macworld and at least 2 other magazines for a year before I bought my first issue. Sorry, a magazine. And MacMan says, oh, great, just what I want, another subscription to Mac Life. Dude, you better not be subscribing to Mac Life. You better not be subscribing to those sleazeballs at Mac Life. They stole my name. You guys may not know the story of this. How long have they been around? I want to say 10 years, maybe? Something like that? Maybe 5 or 7? I'm not sure. But I got a little heads up from someone at IDG, as it turns out. Hey, dude, Mac Addict Magazine has changed their name. Yeah, so why are you calling me? Because they're changing it to Mac Life. I was, wait, what? Yeah, they're changing it to Mac Life. Well, what do I do? Well, call them and talk to them. All right. So I called up the editor-in-chief, a guy who I knew, Rick Myslewski. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. He works at the Register now. I said, Rick, what the hell's going on? I interviewed Rick. The Digital Drew, the guy who wrote the theme music for Your Mac Life, worked for Mac Addict. Your Mac Life had been on the Mac Addict CDs back then. That's how old I am. That I was on the CD. And so I called him up, and Myslewski said, I got nothing to do with it. I'm editorial. Here, call this guy. So I called, I guess, a lawyer for Mac Addict and said, what are we going to do about this? And the guy, I'm paraphrasing, the guy said nothing. Yeah, but you're using my name. My show is Your Mac Life, and you're going to call your magazine Mac Life. I said, let's do this. Why don't you guys buy Your Mac Life, and I'll do the podcast for you. So it'll be Your Mac Life podcast. The guy said, let me talk about it. So they come back and they said, no, we're not going to do that. Well, you can't use Mac Life because it's your Mac Life. It's my name. He said, what are you going to do about it? I said, I'm trying to do something, but, well, just sue us. And he hung up on me. And that was it. This is the last I heard from the Mac Life folks. That's what kind of douchebags they are. All right? So if you subscribe to Mac Life, don't. I got a message from Sly that Jim's waiting. Hang on a second. This is me calling Jim. Phone's ringing. Jim. You there? All right, hang on a second. I'll go put you on speakerphone. Wait. Oh, sorry. And turn that button up. There we go. Now we got Jim on the phone. Where you been, man?
I was on the phone.
You were at that T-Mobile thing this morning, weren't you?
I was.
How much would you like to have that guy run Apple?
No. But I will say that I have a lot of respect for him.
Sure, yeah. Interesting
because
guy.
He just says it like it is.
Exactly.
I love it. I mean, he was calling AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint, Larry, Curly, and Moe from the Three Stooges, and then he said somebody asked him, why he was doing this, and he said, I tried to think of a way to respond without using the word moron, but then he said, but I couldn't, so I said, dear moron.
Yeah, exactly. He's the only other tech CEO whose keynotes I want to watch. Yeah,
I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. He was talking about stuff, and they said, you're giving away data around the world, and why do you do that? And he said, why the fuck not? I mean, it was just, I was sitting there, literally, I was laughing during the keynote. It was great to have somebody that was so honest. And he said, these other companies are saying this, but think about that. Yeah. And he said, T-Mobile has the fastest 4G network, and that's what they advertise. And he said, not a single one of the other companies are refuting that. Yeah. They say that theirs is more reliable. They say this. They say all, but they're not refuting that we have the fastest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So and they've done it in a remarkably short period of time too. They came and did this in about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting company and an interesting CEO. His point of view is someone in the RC chat room saying he has no filter. And I wish more of them would be like that. I wish we had fewer marketing weasels at these companies and more guys like Legier. I think he's a character. He gets your attention. He gets the media's attention, but he's also providing a good product for his customers. That's the next best thing about it.
Well, how about this? He said that the largest month in T-Mobile's history was August.
Wow.
Yeah. The largest month in the history.
Good for them.
They're gaining 2-to-1 on AT&T and Verizon, and 4-to-1 on Sprint.
Wow.
So, I agree with you. Good for them.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, if they can provide a fast network and a quality network, and, you saw yesterday with the Apple keynote, T-Mobile's going to be the first one with voice over Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And VoLTE. You know, you gotta give them credit.
Yep, absolutely. They have done an interesting job of carving out their particular niche in the market, and to a large degree eating the lunch of everyone else to a certain degree because of their plans. But I think also I think his personality resonates with a certain percentage of customers. People want to hear this kind of honest truthfulness, or what's perceived as truthfulness, from the guy running their company. Because none of us like our cell phone carriers. I don't think there's anyone out there that says, oh, I love AT&T, or I love Sprint, or I love whatever. You want to find the company that pisses you off the least, and I think T-Mobile, certainly in the States, is the one that does that.
Well, I kind of like the fact that that they have this brutal honesty about them that's kind of refreshing.
Yep.
You know, because that's kind of what I try to do too with
Sure. Yeah.
with product and stuff. You know, that. So I felt really good about the event today.
Good.
You know, and just coming off of the Apple event and then going up and seeing Legier talk, it was pretty funny.
We talked about this.
But he also had a good message.
We talked about this a little bit on Amplified this morning, folks. You can go to 5by5.tv/Amplified to hear Jim and my conversation about this kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure I asked you about this, but let's talk about it again here. Contrasting and comparing Legier, and we really can't, with Tim Cook. But Tim Cook did seem honestly excited about these announcements, didn't he? I mean, he came on stage, the fist pump at the end seemed like, wow, I don't know if it was a release for him or whether he was genuinely having fun, not for the first time. I think he's enjoyed himself immeasurably in the past, but for whatever reason, he really let that emotion show this time around. I thought it was great. Jim? We lost you, didn't we?
Yes.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
You have no comment about what I said?
Well,
you're just going to jerk me around, aren't you? See, when it's your show, you're fine. When it's my show, you jerk me around.
I think that Tim truly was very excited about not just the announcements, but the whole presentation, the way that the announcements were put together, the way that they were presented. He was excited yesterday.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. It was different than today. I mean, you can't compare Legier. You just can't. But both significant announcements. I mean,
now, when you saw Cook afterwards, he was just as excited. It wasn't just an act for the stage. You said that he seemed still excited and having fun at the event, at the meet and greet afterwards.
Yeah, he was still very excited, and that was great.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that, I don't know. You know, you can tell when somebody's just putting it on, and when they're actually excited. And he seemed very excited about things.
He had good reason to be excited too. I mean, the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus, which I still think is a bit of a silly name, are going to be, a lot of folks, including our friends the Bajarans over at TechPinions.com, have been saying that the upgrade bubble for this cycle is bigger than it's ever been, and those are the folks who've got an old 3G, old 3GS, an old iPhone 4, iPhone 4S. That bubble of people moving forward, this is their upgrade cycle every second year. That group of people is bigger than it's ever been before. So Apple should expect to have record iPhone 6 sales. But that being said, do you think, and you've held it in your hands, you can maybe answer this question. I get the feeling that a lot of folks are taking a wait and see attitude because the iPhone 6 is significantly larger than the difference in the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 that folks want to know is going to fit both in their hands, in their pockets, in their purses, in their jackets. Apple's going to have a big problem in the stores with watching people put iPhones in their pockets. Because I think that's what everyone's going to do. Everyone's going to walk into an Apple retail store, pick up an iPhone, and put it in something.
Well, I can tell you right now that it fits perfectly in your hand.
Yeah.
It fits perfectly in your pocket. So, and people will find that when they go try it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fit and finish of the iPhone 6 is not an issue at all. I wrote that yesterday. I have no concerns whatsoever about the iPhone 6.
Yeah.
None. It's an upgrade. Like people went from the iPhone 5 to the iPhone 5S. They'll go from the 5S to the 6.
Mm-hmm.
And from a 4 or 4S to a 6, we'll definitely notice a big difference.
Sure.
That'll be huge for them.
Yeah.
But it's still going to fit. It's still going to be there for them. It's not that much bigger, but yet you get a lot of screen real estate. So I have no issues.
I've been really interested in watching the commentary. I said this on the pre-show, that suddenly Apple has moved into a realm they'd never really been in before, that of fashion and watches, and the criticism and commentary from those groups of people. Did you talk to any of the fashionistas at the event, or did you scare them off?
Well, there were a few of them there that I saw, and I walked over. One of them gave me $5 and ran away. So
I bet you could spot them easily in the crowd too, couldn't you? You could probably spot the fashionistas really easy in that nerd crowd.
One of them climbed under his chair and started to cry. No, I didn't talk to any of them. But there was a lot of interesting commentary, going on afterwards in the hands-on event, and people just chatting about the watches, and it definitely is a fashion statement. I'm not much of a fashion guy. I have jeans and either a black T-shirt or a gray T-shirt.
The Steve Jobs mode of dressing, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And when you look at these watches and the different or anything, all that is very well thought out. People the silly people that go out and exercise and run, and they need that. Mm-hmm. But somebody said today, who was it? Apple Insider Daniel. I saw him today at the T-Mobile event, and he said, "So what are people going to do now when they want to steal your watch? Cut your arm off?" But they're going to have to steal your iPhone too, because you need an iPhone.
You're going to have to do both, exactly. That's what someone on the Loop said. What happens if someone steals your watch? They said, well, don't worry about it unless they steal your thumb too.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch the fashion folks who either were there, or just the typical commenters talking about these kinds of things. This is a field that Apple hasn't been in before. That being said, do you think the Apple Watch works as fashion, or is it just, air quotes, just a smartwatch?
No, I do think it does work as fashion. It's very elegant looking.
Yeah.
The bands that are around it. The one that I like the most is that chain link one. Mm-hmm. I put that one right on, and it felt very good.
Yeah.
Now, I've said before, I haven't worn a watch since 2006. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a watch feeling good on my arm is odd. And you know, I don't know, maybe any watch I put on would have felt good, but it's going to be interesting to see. I guess it depends on what kind of use I get from it. I mean, I do walk now, so you know, I'll be able to use the silly pedometer stuff and all that. So, you know, that's what's going to be interesting for me, how much use I get out of the features that are in the watch.
I was surprised that some of the features that are in other devices aren't in this one. For example, Apple has not made it clear, but been forced to make it clear this watch, first of all, it's not waterproof, it's water resistant, but you can't go swimming with it. And people are saying, well, why would you want to go swimming with your watch? Well, swimming is exercise, you numbnuts. And swimming is one of the better kinds of exercise that a lot of folks can do, especially folks like me with bad knees. I'd love to be able to swim as opposed to trying to walk or try to jog or dump.
If you ever got in the water, you'd sink.
Well, yeah, but I can hold my breath for like 2 minutes, or I used to be able to anyway.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say that.
So that seems kind of odd that this thing isn't more water resistant. The other thing that seemed kind of odd to me, and because you've used the bands, tell me, the bands, I thought the magnets on the bands is a very clever way of doing something, but is there a concern of if you hook that leather loop or the Milanese band on your, say, your jacket or your pants, that watch would fly off? How strong were those magnets?
Those magnets were pretty strong.
Really? Okay. All right.
I was actually surprised. And the magnet, like for the chain link one, the magnet, it didn't feel to me like the magnet was just on the very tip.
Mm-hmm.
The magnet was, you know, some links down.
Yeah.
So it was kind of grabbing the whole thing. So it would take, I think, it would take quite a bit to, you're not going to be able to shake it off or anything like that. Like if every Friday night go dancing, then, you know, you should be good.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull off your John Travolta moves and, you know, you're going to be okay.
All right. I'll take your word for that.
But, now I didn't try that. I must say I should have, but I didn't. But yeah, catching it in your pants or your jacket or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Got another interesting comment from folks. I've been really interested to see how folks are complaining about the price at $350 for the, so far what we know, the base model. For those folks who are watching the video, I'm holding up my most beloved object, my Tissot watch that I got in Atlanta, Georgia, the opening of the Atlanta store in probably the Peachtree Mall, because everything in Atlanta is called Peachtree. I spent $1,500 in this watch 12 years ago. Spending $350 for a watch is not that big a deal.
No.
You know, a lot of folks are complaining about how expensive this watch is, and yeah, it's almost the price of an iPhone or an iPad, but this is not an unusual price at all for this market, for the things it can do. Even if it was just a straight up pretty watch, $350 is not really all that expensive, folks. Keep that in mind. Keep some.
No, and people are buying watches for 15 and 20 grand.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was our friend Jared Earl on Twitter said he's bought fake watches that were worth $1,500. So
yeah.
$350 is for me it's expensive. I don't have that kind of money to spend on a watch, but it's not out of the realm of where the market of this watch as a fashion device that can do cool geeky things, that's not out of the realm of the price point these folks are willing to pay. That being said, it's a little bit annoying that you have to use it with an iPhone, either a 5 or a 6, in order to get the full functionality in it. One of the things I don't get, maybe Jim, you can help me out with understanding this, is how does the watch not replace my iPhone, because my iPhone's got to be in my pocket too, but why would I use the watch over using my iPhone when the iPhone can do most of the same things that the watch can do?
It's a damn good question.
I thought so too. see. That's the problem I'm having with Apple Watch. I like the idea. I think they're going to sell millions of them over the next year, or over the year that it's coming out. But I still don't see the value proposition in it if I have to have my iPhone with me. Because for me, anyway, I don't know about anyone else, but for me personally, taking my iPhone out of my pocket to find out the time, to read a text message, to send a message, not that big a deal. It's not that onerous to me.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, I think it would be difficult for me anyway to give you a good explanation for that, because I've obviously chosen to not wear a watch, and I've chosen to not buy a smartwatch. So I don't really know. Yeah. I mean, the watch is going to give you access to things. If you're an exercise nut or something like that, it is going to give you access to things easier and things like that. But I don't know. I'll have to try it out to see.
We got questions in the IRC chat room about the edition, which is, I think, another dumb name for the Apple Watch edition. What edition? First edition? Second edition? Apple? Come on. Hiker BC, ask Jim if he noticed if the 18-karat gold watches are solid or plated.
Well, now, that's a damn good question.
I thought so.
Because I thought that they were plated.
Yeah.
But I heard today somebody else said that they were solid.
Interesting.
Now, if it's solid, that's going to be very expensive.
Oh, hell yes. I mean, that's going to be at least a couple ounces of gold in there, I think. And at the price of gold, you're looking at $2,000 for that, for those 18-karat.
No, you'll be looking at a hell of a lot more than that.
Well, and that's what I mean. I mean, at the very least.
Yeah, you'll be looking at, it'll be in the 5 digits, not the 4. So, that could be a very expensive watch if that's the case. But I didn't think that it was solid.
Mm-hmm.
And now maybe I misunderstood, but we'll see.
Talking more about the commentary, brief bullets of what's happening with the announcement of Apple's new digital device, gathered from a variety of sources. These are just quotes I grabbed. I was so hoping for something more. Great, just what the world needs. Here's an idea, Apple. Rather than enter the world of gimmicks and toys, why don't you spend a little more time sorting out your pathetically expensive lineup? Or are you really aiming to become a glorified consumer gimmicks firm? I still can't believe all this. All this hype for something so ridiculous? Who cares? I want something new. I want them to think differently. Why, oh, why would they do this? It's so wrong. It's so stupid. And then the other response is, come on, everyone. You all are saying it sucks before you even had it in your hand. And finally, the reason why everyone's so disappointed is because we all had our hopes up for this incredible device. All of those comments were about the original iPod. All those comments are being echoed by any number of people about the Apple Watch. All of those comments, I believe, are going to go the same way as the commentary about the iPod.
Since you have those comments already done, we need to figure out a way to post that on the loop.
Oh, I can do that. I can absolutely do that. But it's interesting. That's the first thing I was thinking about when I saw the Apple Watch. I bet the commentary is going to be the same for this smartwatch as it was for the iPod, because.
Well,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because this is so outside of the general, I don't want to make this much of a generality, but the general Mac user or Apple fans, it's so outside their comfort zone of where they think Apple should be doing things. I mean, when the iPod first came out, we were all like, why the hell is Apple getting MP3 players? And kind of the same thing here. Why the hell is Apple getting into watches?
Yeah. Yeah, I will admit, though, that I was a little bit surprised that it looked so much like a watch.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I said it in the story yesterday, and I don't know what I expected. And somebody actually asked me that, which is, an obvious question. Well, if you didn't expect the watch, what did you expect?
Yep.
I don't know. But I expected something not like a watch, I guess. And so I'm wrapping my head around that. Okay, it is obviously a watch.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is a watch, then, okay, what can it do? And, that's why I find the software so fascinating, because I think that they did an extraordinary job with the software. I'm very impressed with that. And I also said Apple could have taken iOS 8, put it on a watch, made it look like a Nano, and people would have bought it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But instead they did this great interface, and really changed the way that we interact with the watch. So the watch really is innovative on its own, the hardware, with the digital crown. Very, very fascinating way to do things.
Yeah.
And this bubble of icons forth, and it's your watch is kind of alive, it's fluid. That's very interesting. So, a whole new way to be able to interact with a device.
How does that look
that's fascinating to me.
How do the visuals of that look in person, Jim? Because for me, seeing the video, obviously video is two-dimensional, it's flat. They look kind of busy and crowded. Does it look the same way in person? Is there more of a maybe a 3D dimensionality to it?
I don't know about 3D, but yeah, it does have more of a floating effect to it.
Yeah.
Than what it looks like on video. But I think that they definitely spent a lot of time on the interface, mm-hmm. and making sure that what's familiar to people now will be familiar when they get an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
So, and I also think they should have called it an iWatch.
Yeah, I don't have that much of a problem with Apple Watch, but an iWatch is fine for me. The other aspect of this that I don't think that you've mentioned, and because people haven't had a chance to use it, only those folks who've had it in their hands are really commenting on the interchangeability of these bands and the very, very clever way it was done. Folks, if you haven't had a chance to go to loopinsight.com, there's a really interesting review from the point of view of a watch guy posted up on loopinsight.com, and he commented on that aspect of it too, of the fit and finish of this thing is up there with any other high-end, high-quality watch. Did you guys get a chance in the demo room to unstrap and strap these bands on?
No, didn't do that.
Okay.
But I looked at the clasps and they're very well done.
Yeah.
Everything there is very well done. So I found that very fascinating, that they, it's typical of Apple that
Sure.
they focus so much time on these little things. And, the watch straps that have a link in them. And, when you want to, if you have to shorten your band, you have to go to the jeweler and they pop a link out.
Yep.
Well, you can just do that yourself.
Yeah.
You just pop a link out and, it just snaps off and snaps on. And
very cool.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Now, you were saying that you didn't know what to expect. I was fully expecting an iBand. We've talked on the show about the Tech Opinions guys and Disneyland, I think, in Florida, where when you buy one of their packages, they give you a wristband, like a Nike Fit Band kind of thing, that uses RFID tracking and allows you to buy things in Disneyland. That's what I was expecting. Because the other thing is, we've seen Tim Cook walking around, we've seen pictures of him, even in previous keynotes, where he's got a Nike Fit Band on, where he's been using some sort of, maybe not a Nike Fit Band, but you know what I mean, that kind of device. So I was expecting Apple to bring up that. The watch face concept to me was completely blew me away. The idea that they would go this way. The other aspect of it too is some of the cutesy things. I don't know. I'm never going to send an animated emoji to anybody. I'm never going to use emoji to begin with. I'm never going to send my heartbeat to a loved one. If only because if it stops, the person's going to worry about you. Can you imagine? Yeah. You have this heartbeat going on, all of a sudden it stops, their battery died or whatever happens. It stops. You're going to think they died. I think this is a bad idea. I think saying heartbeat over the interwebs is a bad idea. I think you're just looking for trouble. So there's a lot of, gimmicky stuff, for lack of a better word, that Apple is putting in this thing, which again doesn't make me want the device. It doesn't make me want it less, but I'm still not convinced that I personally need this. But again, I can see how other folks would really like it.
But see, unlike the iPhone, this is not a device that you need.
Yes.
So it's a device that you will want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you're either going to want it or not. It's not going to be a thing like, okay, I need a new phone because everybody has a phone and I have to have one too. So I'm going to go get an iPhone because it's coolest on the market. Or one of those two.
Could happen.
Could happen. So I think that this is a completely different category. Even the guy with the $10,000 Rolex will go out and just flip a phone, no big deal.
Sure.
So everybody needs that. So you're going to sell a lot more phones than what you will watches.
That being said, Marcus Mendez in the IRC chat room has a really interesting comment that he says, my impression is that Apple made a watch for people who already wear watches instead of trying to solve the whole convincing people who don't wear watches to start wearing watches thing. Now, do you agree with that, or do you think that the Apple Watch will convince the people who don't wear watches to wear watches? I think it's the other way around. I'm never going to replace my Apple Watch with my beautiful $1,500 Tissot.
Well, he has a good point.
But you don't wear a watch.
What about the people that have, I don't know, Citizen or Timex or that's a couple $100.
Yeah.
I don't even know how much watches cost these days.
Yeah, me neither.
Clearly, I need to do some research before the Apple Watch comes out. But yeah, he has a point. For those people, watch that is more functional and is going to allow you to do more things in the car or in the house and your apps and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for those people, maybe that is what Apple's trying to do. Yeah. To get those people. I don't know if they're going to be able to convince people that don't wear watches to all of a sudden wear watches. Yeah. So that's going to be a harder sell. I forget who I was standing with yesterday in the middle of all the people sitting down in the vicinity here and see how many people are wearing a watch.
Sure, yeah.
There were two.
Yep.
Two people in the audience right around us that were wearing a watch that we could see. Those aren't big odds, and I don't even know if those were smartwatches or not. Yeah. No idea. So, can Apple convince those two people out of, I don't know, say 20 that were around us to buy an Apple Watch? Yep. Maybe. But what about the other 18? I don't know.
Now, I've got a free idea for Apple that they can do a Canadian Apple Watch. And you know what it would do? It would give you notifications when your favorite team scored a goal in hockey.
Well,
that'd be huge.
I wouldn't want that.
Well, why wouldn't you want that?
Because I try to watch the games later at night so that, I can relax and watch them. And now you're going to tell me who won before I even get there.
I stole that from Hiker BC. You've seen the Budweiser goal light Wi-Fi thing, haven't you? Isn't that kind of cool?
That's why I didn't buy one of those, because I don't want to know when they scored.
That'd be just hilarious to get that on your watch. But that's I think that's going to be the key. Whether it's Apple Watch version 1 or version 2, I think it'll definitely be version 2. Is what same with the original iPhone. What kind of apps are we going to have on this device? I think version 2 might have a stronger use case for me personally. Once developers get this thing in their hands, can play around with it, can start creating apps for it, and convincing us. I think that's going to be the big deal. That's going to be the future of the Apple Watch. Just like the iPod. The first version was only for the Macintosh. The next versions that came out got bigger and bigger and better. Same with the iPhone. The first versions only did web apps. The follow-on versions did a lot more things. I think that's going to be the key, is version 2 of the Apple Watch.
Well, clearly, making apps for the wall. So they have apps, and not just Apple apps, third-party apps. So it's a matter of what developers do with the functionality.
Yep.
You know, you don't type, but you can use Siri.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be okay. I don't know what Facebook would do, although, you know, show you new requests or something. I don't know. But I don't want to start typing on my watch.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And not typing. I don't want to start, you know, replying to things all the time on my watch. Yep. But you know, there are very smart developers out there, and I've said before, I don't know what they're going to do with this, and then these smart 16-year-old kids come out with this incredible idea, yep. You know, and rightfully make a gazillion dollars off of it, but they always prove me wrong. So I'll say again, I don't know what they're going to do. You know, and then they'll come up with some smart ideas, but it's not like you're going to be able to write on it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to be different. And I don't know if it's going to be the same crowd of people, but you know, when you look at smartwatches now, you look at the Pebble and you look at the Moto X and Samsung Gear and all of these kind of things. The real geeky geeks are the ones that get it, and some of them really like it. I think they like the idea more than they like the actual product. So, is this going to be the watch that goes all the way through the consumer market and people rush out to buy it, like the iPad?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, people that never thought that they would have a tablet own an iPad.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There was a lot of good ideas that came through the announcement yesterday. One of the ones I think will be the most far-reaching, even more so than the Apple Watch, is Apple Pay. Now, I don't think we're going to get Apple Pay up here in Canada for quite some time. Our banks are notoriously conservative, but Apple Pay will be...
By banks, you mean a mattress.
Yeah, by the mattress, exactly. But it'll be available down there in the States, I think, at launch of the iPhone 6. I think Apple said 220,000 different retail outlets. A whole bunch of different companies are going to be using this thing. This is less... Correct me if I'm wrong, from your speaking to Apple after the event, Jim, is this more about convenience or security?
Oh, it's both.
Both, yeah.
I mean, security is a measure of, you know, what has to be there for this. But it's definitely a matter of convenience. Yeah. It's a matter of doing away with a lot of the crap that we have to put up with right now because of, you know, credit cards. Yeah. But if you're looking at Apple Pay for convenience, you have to be worried about security. Mm-hmm. You just have to. I mean, there's no way around. So security is going to be a huge part of it, and they've taken care of that as well. So Apple Pay, I think, could, you know, from now to say 5 years or 3 years, Apple's biggest announcement yesterday.
Now, it's not going to replace your wallet, like a lot of people think. I don't know if Apple said that, but I mean, for example, one of the things is you still need a wallet for your driver's license. You still need a wallet for your health card, for those folks who carry those things, or insurance cards, or things like that. So don't call it a wallet replacement. But it will go a long way, and especially, I think, depending on how Apple markets this. Apple may step away from advertising security because of the issues of last week, but eventually they're going to start telling people about how much more secure this is. They will not reference the Target break-in directly. They will not reference the Home Depot hack directly, but they will tell people, they will make it very clear to folks that those kinds of things cannot happen with Apple Pay. The most that could happen is they could steal that one transaction from you, but nothing else, because of the really interesting technology that's going on behind the scenes with Apple Pay. I think that's the thing that I'm never going to understand, but I think is really, really interesting. The question is, Jim, do you think Apple is going to open this up? Because NFC is available with Google Wallet, with other devices, Android devices. Do you think Apple will ever open this up so that everyone with NFC will be able to use it, or will this stay an iPhone device?
Why would they do that?
Well, they did it with the original iPod. Remember, again, as I said earlier, the original iPod was a Mac-only product, but it eventually came to Windows.
Yeah, but they had saturated the Mac market with it at that point, too. So I think that Apple Pay for the next few years. See, Apple Pay is the perfect way to sell iPhones.
Exactly.
You know, and they did sell a lot of Macs with iTunes and all of that too. But if this ever opens up, I think that it'll take a while.
Yep.
I mean, Apple needs to sell what it can first.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I mean, I was just tossing it out there as devil's advocate. I can't see Apple doing this. This is going to be, a year from now, such a huge differentiator between how you can use your Android phone versus how you can use your iPhone, that people, with all the other perceived and or real advantages of the iPhone, if the big pain point for a lot of folks was, the iPhone screen was too small, well, that's gone now. That's what we heard from a lot of folks. They went to Samsung, they went to a different device because the screen was bigger and their eyes were bad, or they thought they needed a bigger screen. I can see a lot of folks moving from Android devices to an iPhone, not just because of Apple Pay, but because of a larger screen, because of Touch ID, because of security, because of the apps, because of Apple Pay.
The reasons for either staying with or moving to iOS and an Apple device are becoming more plentiful all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many reasons to move. And I think people are starting to get it.
Yeah.
You know, sure, go ahead, take your Samsung and your gigantic phone,
yep,
and off you go. But there are more considerations besides the big screen. And even though Apple has a big screen phone now, I still maintain that.
Yeah.
There's more to things than just a big screen. So, you know, I'm not totally sold on the big screen idea. I'm going to have to use one for a bit and see.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
But I'm not.
It's definitely something I'm going to think about. I will not be pre-ordering an iPhone. I'm going to be one of those guys that's going to need to go into the store and pick one up and hold it up next to my iPhone 5 and look at a web page and look at the screens and see whether the text. I mean, for me, the first thing I'll do is I'll go to getpocket.com and see how much text I can read on an iPhone 6 Plus versus how much text I can read on an iPhone 5. That, for me, is one of the bigger deals. The camera is going to be a big deal, too. But for me, that's what I use my iPad Air for, is reading a lot.
Well, the 6 Plus, I loaded the loop in it, and it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah.
Look gorgeous on the 6 Plus. You know, I don't know what else to say. It's just so nice looking on that device, because the text is very big. It's very clean and crisp. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm going to be assuming, he won't answer, but we'll assume that Jim is getting an iPhone 6 and or a 6 Plus for review from Apple, and the review will be up shortly before launch date. So we'll look forward to that. Look forward to seeing what Jim has to say about the iPhone 6 with a daily use kind of thing. Keep that in mind, folks. The reviews and criticism you should be reading are from those folks who have them in hand, who have used them. Don't just be reading stuff from some guy on the interweb who's got an opinion about it and says, this sucks because of this. Most folks haven't used it, especially the Apple Watch. No one has used the Apple Watch. Not even Jim has used the Apple Watch outside of demo mode. So all he can talk about, and all anybody can talk about, is how it works in demo mode. So I'll be really interested.
Yeah, which is why I said that I'm going to have to use it to see if there's, you know, a reason for me to put on a watch again.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I don't know.
It will be interesting.
I mean,
go ahead.
I could say yes. I could say, yeah, Apple put out this great thing. And of course I'm going to use the watch again after almost 10 years. But, yeah, that wouldn't be honest. No. I can't say that I will.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be interesting to see whether or not it can convince folks like you to wear a watch, and whether or not it can convince folks like me to not wear the watch I've been wearing every day for the past 12 years. It's a very interesting problem Apple has.
Somebody said in the chat room, Marcus, I think, you know, is Apple even concerned that I would wear it or not? Yeah. Maybe they're not. Yeah. Maybe I'm not even the person that they're looking for.
True.
You know, so I have to keep that in mind too, because this is a very focused product.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we said before, on the iPhone, which is has a very wide consumer reach, watch really doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It could have, but, you know, in the 50s, everybody had a watch.
Yeah,
if Apple put this out in the 50s, people would kill you for being a witch, but, you know.
Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. He also does his own podcast. It's called Amplify, and he has some doofus on there every Wednesday talking with him. The latest issue is up on both the iTunes Store and at 5by5.tv/Amplify. Jim, thanks for joining me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk next week. See ya. What's your guys' opinion about all this stuff? I was asking the folks in the IRC chat room before the show, what are your thoughts about the iPhone 6, the iPhone 6 Plus? Is it a device that you are going to buy? And I asked the guys, Brian and Marcus and Dave and those guys who were here a little earlier. It goes on sale September 19th. How many of you will either A, pre-order it, and then get it on the 19th, buy it on the 19th, or at least buy it before Christmas? How many of you folks will, sight unseen, basically, go and get one of these things? If you're watching the video, you'll see from the wire cutter, the iPhone 5 is on the far right, the iPhone 6 is on the far left, and the iPhone 6 Plus is in the middle. That gives you an idea of the files, of the sizes of this thing. Email me, Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com, or on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what you guys think about this new iPhone. For me, as I said earlier, I think during the pre-show, I take my iPad Air with me wherever I go because I read constantly. If I'm sitting watching TV, I'm watching a live football game, and a commercial comes on, I pick up my iPad Air and start reading. That's how much I read all the time. I don't even sit and watch commercials. I read. When I travel, on the plane, in the terminal, in the cab, when I'm on the bus going downtown, I'm reading constantly. And sadly, I can't read a lot on my iPhone. The screen just isn't big enough for me. And, you know, trying to make the text big enough so I can read it means you're scrolling constantly and you get gamer thumb. The other thing for me is the iPad Air is my photo editing device when I am away from the computer. So I'll take a picture with my iPhone, or a picture with my Olympus M1, or my Canon D600, put those pictures on the iPad Air, and then using various apps, edit the photos right there on the Air. I wonder if the iPhone 6 Plus is big enough to edit photos on. I don't do it on the 5S now because the kind of editing I do tends to, if I can't see detail, I screw the edit up. I'll blow up the highlights, or because the iPhone screen is just too small, my eyes are just too bad. But with a larger iPhone, maybe I wouldn't bring the iPhone 6 Plus, the iPad Air around with me. Could the iPhone 6 Plus eliminate, for some folks, the need for the iPad Air? The other thing is, and keep this in mind, the iPhone 6 Plus is a checkbox item in Canada, the US, and Europe. Something Apple had to do because Samsung and Motorola and all those other guys had these devices. It was actually designed for Asia, for India, for China, because phablets, giant phones, almost tablets, are huge over there. And that's a huge market. Inside 2 years, Apple will have more customers in China than they do in all the United States. Inside 5 years, Apple will have more customers in China than they do in the rest of the world. Keep that in mind. Apple is going to start, as they have already, designing products for that market. Not specifically for that market, in other words, not that can only be used in that market, but certainly with an eye and a half towards what that market wants. And right now, the China-Asia market wants big screen iPhones. If you don't want a big screen iPhone, Apple's basically told you, sorry, hold on to your 4. Buy a bunch of them off eBay as backup. Because I don't think we're ever going to see a smaller iPhone than the 5 that we have, the 5C that Apple's still selling. 5C or 5S? The 5 anyway. I can't see Apple ever going back a step. So I think we're going to continue to see these large iPhones. Will they get bigger than 5.5? I don't know. That's a possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. Email me to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you want me to read it during the show. I appreciate it. ArcSign says, Shawn, I'd advise people not to get into a cellular contract with a $200 or $300 phone if it only gives you 16 gigabytes. Too little memory for the money. I don't disagree with you, but some folks can't afford the 32 gig or the 64 gig machine. You know, sometimes it's not a matter of gigabytes, it's a matter of how much money you have in your pocket. StartingPointPhotography.com is our website. We've got a Groupon. If you're in the Vancouver area, we've got a Groupon going now. You can find out more information at StartingPointPhotography.com. We've got on September 20th. Actually, what is it? It's 10 days away. Oh, my goodness. So a week from this Saturday, I'll be up in Prince George, British Columbia, teaching 50-plus people the iPhone Secrets Revealed in Prince George class. I'm really happy with that. So thanks very much to our good friend Vito Mori for helping set that up. I appreciate that. We'll be doing the class there, and we've got 8 classes here in the Vancouver area that I'll be doing. Also, don't forget, if you are a social photographer, October 11th is the Scott Kelby Worldwide Photo Walk. These are kind of fun. I was a leader for the first one. I'll be a leader for another one here, October 11th. Anytime during the day, in like 900 countries around the world. Sorry, 900 cities around the world. Thousands and thousands and thousands of photographers will go out and shoot whatever they say, whatever they feel like, whatever springs to their mind. And if you're a photographer and want to hang out with other photographers, October 11th is a good time to do it. Go to worldwidephotowalk.com or do a search for Scott Kelby Photo Walk on Google, and it will pop up. If you're in the Vancouver area, I'd love to see you. It'd be great for you to come down. Mosquito, so looking forward to my first good photo walk. Wish I could hang with Shawn. So do I, Mo. I know Mo got a bad photo walk last time. I know mine are fun. Because I'm a fun guy. Speaking of photography, petapixel.com is the website. Had the most idiotic story I've seen in a long time. It says, the iPhone is not for photographers. Now, the problem with the story, besides the fact that the author is a freaking moron, is what he probably meant to say was the iPhone isn't for professional photographers. He's still wrong, but at least it's a little bit more accurate. Folks, don't ever let anybody tell you the thing you use to create images, to take pictures, is not for photographers. Simply by the nature of you taking that image, creating that photograph, you are a photographer. Whether you're using an iPhone, a point and shoot, a Samsung device, an iPad, doesn't matter. A Browning, a Polaroid, doesn't matter what you're shooting with. You are, by the nature of shooting, a photographer. And for anyone to tell you you're doing it wrong makes that person a freaking idiot. One of the problems that I see is photographers, professional photographers, looking down their nose at other photographers. And in some respects, they have a little bit of a point. The market for payment for photographs has fallen through the floor. Guys who used to be able to sell their photos for $1,000 are now selling their photos for $100. The market has been devastated when it comes to photography and sales. And a lot of these guys blame amateurs. They blame smaller, cheaper, better cameras. They blame Instagram. They blame Flickr. They blame. Instead of understanding it's the law of supply and demand, because of smartphones, and certainly because of the iPhone, just more people are taking more photographs. And therefore, by the laws of large numbers, more people are taking good photographs. More people are taking photographs worth paying for, simply because there's more photographs out there, taken by decent cameras. So to have a pro look down his nose and say, well, that's not a real camera, screw you, dude. Tell them that. It's like, I've had it happen many a time. I've had motorcycle riders look down their nose because of the kind of motorcycle I'm riding. What difference does it make to you? It doesn't affect you at all. It doesn't make your bike less slow. It doesn't make your bike less valuable. It's just different. Now, if these photographers are saying, well, that guy with the iPhone took a picture and sold it when I took the same picture with my SLR and didn't sell it, well, guess what? Be a better photographer. Don't slam the guy taking the iPhone picture. It's an awful article, and I'm glad to see that in the article, in the comments of the article, most of the folks who are commenting are basically saying the same thing. There's one comment, what a misleading and dumb blog post. The iPhone has made photography fun again. Screw your DSLR equipment. Good for them. Again, another stupid article of people crying how phone cameras are not real cameras. Just STFU and take pictures and enjoy yourself. Maybe this guy's coming from the point of view of a pro whose income has been decimated by his inability to charge the same amount of money he could in the past for his photos. And you know what? To a certain degree, I feel for you. I can completely understand it. You built, a business and a lifestyle at a certain price point for your photographs. When you can't make that price point, you've got to either sell more photos or make do with less money. And making do with less money, I speak from experience, that ain't no fun. But yeah, don't let anybody tell you that the iPhone isn't for photographers. I've seen some spectacularly beautiful iPhone shots that I wouldn't have believed were taken off an iPhone unless you told me that they were off an iPhone. So you beginners, don't get dissuaded by some pro telling you that you can't use an iPhone to be a photographer. By the way, for those folks who were asking about it, I fixed the link on the YourMacLifeShow.com website. The subscriber button was broken for a while, and you would click on it, and it wouldn't let you subscribe. So if that was stopping you from subscribing, please subscribe. You can subscribe for $2, $5, $10, $15, whatever amount of money you'd like per month. It comes out of your major credit card, and it goes into my bank account, my PayPal account. And I use it to buy food and pay rent and good stuff like that. Buy an iWatch. No, I'm not buying an iWatch. Apple Watch. Got emails, lots and lots of emails. Our friend Les Poston. Have you ever sent a friend a text to say you're thinking of them? Now you can send them a heartbeat to say you're thinking something about them. No. I've never sent a text to a friend saying that I'm thinking about them. Johnny Ive is a watch collector and aficionado. So that's Les Poston again. He said he visited Hong Kong in December 2013. Most of them use huge-ass Samsung phones for the Chinese characters, but all carried an extra battery pack too. And he has one of the best reviews of the Apple Watch concept I read today from a watch expert, a horologist. And then he sends me my own link. Les, pay attention. I already posted that link. What did you guys think of the U2 album that we all got for free? Unlike The Verge, who said that U2 gave it to Apple for free. No, they frickin' didn't. Apple paid U2 for that album, you morons. It was so funny, and I think Sherry, I'm going to pick on Sherry here. I think Sherry was one of those people who complained about the fact that they couldn't get rid of it. You can't delete it. You can only hide it. But that's true of a lot of things on the iTunes Store. There's all kinds of stuff I want to get rid of on the iTunes Store, but I can't. You can only hide stuff. You can't delete things. It's just really annoying, Apple. Stop doing that. Monty, U2, yawn. Yeah, okay, fine. You don't like U2. So? If they had put up a Dr. Dre album, people would say the same thing. If they put up I don't know, I'm thinking about a band, Coldplay. They put up a Justin Bieber, whatever. Everyone's going to bitch about this stuff. And I just thought it was funny. Now, granted, I'm a huge U2 fan, and I grabbed the album as soon as I could and listened to it. But if you don't like it, that's fine. It's kind of cool Apple did it. But they're complaining about it really struck me very, very funny. I got email, yeah. So Matt Duffy. As there isn't much Apple news this week, I wonder if you could give your opinion on the Scottish independence vote. Interested to know what you think. Ha ha, Matt. Les Posen says, what happens to Macworld Expo at Moscone? Nothing for the time being. As long as, and this is true of Macworld Magazine, and it's true of Macworld Expo, as long as IDG feels they're making X number of dollars off of their properties, they will continue to do them. Now, what X is, I have no idea. But it's obvious that they felt that Macworld, the magazine, wasn't making X number of dollars. And Macworld.com wasn't making X number of dollars. And so they got rid of staff. And they get rid of the print magazine. And these costs associated with that. Okay. I disagree with them. But that's a business decision. I think they're asshats. I think they're driving that company into the ground. But that's why they do these things. As long as Macworld Expo makes them money, they'll keep doing it. As long as it makes them X number of dollars, they'll keep doing it. But I think that the amount of money they're making off Macworld Expo, I think, is getting less and less all the time. Scott Randall. In view of Apple's announcement, you may not get to talk about the topics I suggested in my last email. It's possible, Scott. What you might want to mention is the streaming of, or rather lack of streaming of the announcements. This is a big embarrassment for Apple. The largest tech company in the world having streaming that stalls, fails to work in some cases, message reading, not authorized to view this, etc. Has a Japanese and/or Chinese translation bleeding through the whole presentation. I venture to say some heads will roll because of this. I never really get excited over phone introduction, but I usually enjoy watching the presentation. Well, not this time. Yeah, it pissed me off too, Scott. I wasn't happy about it. But you know what? I knew it would get fixed, and it did eventually. And I knew Apple would have the stream up later in that day. And I knew Apple would have the download up later that day. So, yeah, I was pissed off at the beginning, but you roll with it. Was it embarrassing for Apple? Undoubtedly. Will someone get fired? I don't know. You see, whether someone gets fired or not depends on why it happened. If it happened because, some contractor cut a pipe going into Cupertino and we lost bandwidth, then no one's getting fired over it. If it was because some intern pushed the wrong button, no one's getting fired over it. If it was an infrastructure thing, probably no one's getting fired over it. Now, I posted up on the Loop at loopinsight.com a potential explanation for it. Did you notice Apple's live video page had a bunch of text below it and tweets and images? The guy says that is what caused a lot of the problems. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. Apple hasn't said, I don't know enough about this stuff to know whether it's true or not. But it is the thing that changed from the previous Apple event video to this Apple event video. Now, granted, probably an exponentially larger number of people were trying to watch that video at the time. So that might have had something to do with it too. And the combination of, 20% more people and the code they use on the Apple site may have caused these issues. I don't know. Apple's not going to explain it. You're not going to see a press release from Apple saying blah, 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 blah. They'll just get it fixed. I'd be willing to bet the next Apple event, you won't see those tweets underneath the video. I thought they were silly to begin with. There was no need of them to have them there on the video. I'm certainly not reading them or watching them while I'm watching the video. My attention was completely focused on the video. I don't care about what the Twitterati were saying. So I don't think you'll see Apple do that again. But yeah, it was undoubtedly embarrassing from Apple's point of view. Again, as always, email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Get emails from Don Beck. At the end of this past YML show, your Mac Mini had fallen asleep. Have you ever heard of a neat utility called caffeine? Yeah, I use caffeine all the time. I just hadn't turned it on last week. Duh. Dumb guy. On a different subject, who finally converted to an iPhone this past year, this is Don, and has done a bit of photography, asked me if there was a camera. Okay, Don, I've got to read this properly. On a different subject, a friend who finally converted to an iPhone this past year asked me if there was a camera app that would let her control the aperture of the iPhone camera so that she could adjust the depth of field. As far as I know, that would be a hardware thing and not a software thing. I was hoping I was wrong and that you knew of something. Don, for everyone else, depth of field is controlled by this thing called aperture. And what aperture is how much the shutter opens up. Now, the iPhone's only got one aperture. I think it's f2.2. Other cameras, there's a dial on it that you can open up the aperture and close the aperture, make the number bigger and smaller. But the iPhone is what's called a fixed aperture camera. So you, in the camera, can't change the aperture. There is a bunch of software that can do it. After Focus is a cool app I've used. There are websites. Go to improvephotography.com, and they've got a tutorial on how to do it software-wise. iPhonePhotographySchool.com has got a tutorial on how to do it. The simplest thing is wait for iOS 8. iOS 8, Apple has promised us a bunch of new manual controls over what our iPhone can do. So keep that in mind. iOS 8 will do a lot of these kinds of manual controls. Let's see if anyone else is talking about anything. MacBand, I'd love to know how many hits their site got. Nope, I think that's it. Mosquito, I have to feel bad for companies that are still making point and shoots. To a certain degree, yes, absolutely. Point and shoots still have their place, though. I've often said if you want a camera that you can hand to a 9-year-old that the 9-year-old can play with, I'm not giving them my iPhone. I'm not giving them my SLR. I'm giving them my Olympus TG850. This is the tough line of cameras from Olympus. This thing has been mounted to a motorcycle. It's gone skiing with me. It's gone to the beach with me. It goes underwater. You're never doing any of that stuff with an iPhone or with a DSLR. They're just not tough enough. So if you want a camera that you can give to someone who's hard on cameras, I'm not giving them an iPhone. I'm not giving them a $2,000 DSLR. You want a present for a kid who's hard on a camera, especially the Olympus line. The Olympus line of stylish, tough cameras is a good line of cameras to give. But for the most part, you're right. It's getting harder and harder for manufacturers to justify, especially in the low end, point-and-shoot cameras. They've got to work a lot harder to get money out of your wallet when we're all carrying around a pretty damn good camera in the iPhone. And mirrorless cameras, which are almost smaller or as small as iPhone, especially, the bigger ones. As long as those ones keep getting smaller and smaller, it's going to be really interesting to see where these guys are going. I just saw a very funny graphic. I'm going to pull this up for you guys, for you folks who are watching the video. This is a graphic of the iPhone 6 next to the Fuji X1000, a very good mirrorless camera. Look at the difference there. So we got the iPhone 5 on the left, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 6 Plus, and then the Fuji. The Fuji mirrorless camera is smaller, at least height-wise, and a little bit in its width than the iPhone 6 Plus. So which of these is pocketable? Which of these cameras will fit in your pocket? That's going to be very, very interesting. Folks, thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us. During the week, for you folks who are tuned in on the archive, let me know, are you going to buy the iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus? Will you buy a new iPhone before Christmas of this year? Email onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. How many of you are going to buy the Apple Watch next year, say before the end of spring, before, say, June 1st? Do you think you'll buy an Apple Watch? Yes or no? Email me to onair@yourmaclifeshow. Let me know why. Why you will, why you wouldn't. Why you would get the iPhone 6 Plus. Why you wouldn't get the iPhone 6 Plus. Why you would get the Apple Watch. And why you wouldn't get the Apple Watch. Again, thanks to Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining me. I want to say again, big thanks to Dan Benjamin over at Amplified for letting me sit in with Jim Dalrymple while Dan's been off doing other things. I've got one more episode with Jim on The Loop next Friday morning at 9 a.m., so please tune in if you can. 5by5.tv/live is the URL. Put it in your iCal calendar. And if you'd like, if you want to send a little message off to Dan Benjamin on Twitter, he's at Dan Benjamin on Twitter, saying how much you enjoy Shawn on Amplified and how much you'd like for Dan not to come back. Don't say it that way. But still. If you could, that'd be kind of nice. Folks, as always, thank you guys very much for being tuned into the show. I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!